Now we have great time, something like 25 minutes for discussion. I would like to open the floor, but I would also let you know that, of course, you can also comment and criticize or question the others, so please feel free for that. Anyone? Okay, we would have one question there. The second is going to be here.
I would like to ask from József Padányi, dear professor, what do you think, how you see the cooperation between the military and churches in the future?
Thank you. As I speak about earlier, we have a good connection with the civilian part of, for example, the church. And as you know, in the Hungarian Defense Forces is open for all churches. So we have a good cooperation with all of churches. And on the other hand, in a different kind of peacekeeping mission, the church always on the side give them closely support in this field. So I am optimistic, absolutely.
And I have a question for Professor Újházi.
Sorry, please ask for the microphone, and I'm going to let everyone know. Now, please go. But that's
okay. But I guess. Okay. You mentioned that the Commission of the Bishops' Conference of the European Union has working groups focusing on major security issues. Is there one focused specifically on the Western Balkans?
Yeah. After this, first of all, I would like to mention that after the Second Vatican Council, this attitude changed, that the grouping of the bishops and the bishop conferences were very open to dealing with every security issue, including the regional aspect. The Holy See, if I'm not mistaken, was very active to have the countries of the Balkan, first of all Croatia, joined to the European Union, and then Slovenia. I'm a member of one of the commissions of the this grouping of the Bishop Conference. We are dealing with the migration issue, but I know that some of our colleagues came from the Balkan, from Croatia, from Slovenia, of course. They can share their perspectives, their concept with us. I'm not sure that the Commission, this European Commission, should have or would have a certain aim dedicated to Balkan. Security issues, of course, migration, other challenges, environmental problems, interface dialogue, ecumenism, and so on, and so on, and so on. And of course, the geographical perspective is one of the key issues. Always we are taking into consideration the concept of people coming from different countries, including the Balkan.
Okay, the next one was here.
I have two questions. The first is for David Wetham. What can you handle the problem of lawfare? I mean, the method of using and accusing somebody for committing war crimes. And I can see these pictures and that videos can so easily manipulated that somebody is not able to recognize if this criminal crime has occurred or happened ever. What kind of counter-lawfare method can you pronounce or can you mention to us, which can be very effectively at the age of the AI? The second is from Colonel John from my talks. I'm absolutely concerned about the nuclear warfare, and sometimes I really often heard that AI can overdo even the devastation of the nuclear warfare. I don't really see what AI can produce such a harassment that nuclear warfare. Can you mention just a few examples how artificial intelligence can even overdo the demolition of the nuclear weapon? Thank you.
First question on lawfare, yeah? What can you do about it? So lawfare, significant challenge. It's not a new one. Napoleonic frigates were quite happy trying to manipulate each other into opening fire on an enemy by subterfuge or putting them into a situation where they were accidentally declaring war, etc. You know, it's not a new idea. But we're seeing increasing use of it in a way to discredit an opponent, to undermine their legitimacy by placing them in a situation where it doesn't matter what they do, they're breaking a rule and are seen to be breaking a rule. That's a profound challenge. I would say that the best way, assuming that you are in good spirit attempting to follow those rules, let's assume that, and rather than just claiming that my opponent is using lawfare, so it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to be wrong anyway. Let's assume you're trying to do the right thing. What is the best response to an opponent who is using lawfare against you? I would say it's transparency and honesty. Being clear what it is that you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it, how you're trying to stay within the rules, but also being honest when you get it wrong. The UK has learnt over the years, it keeps having to relearn this lesson in every conflict. It will start when something goes wrong, denying it's gone wrong. They'll say, oh no, that wasn't us, or no, that didn't happen, or whatever. There will be denial. And then eventually somebody will say, present the evidence, no, it did happen. It's very clear that this did happen. This was you. And by now, it's too late. It's too late. You've lost trust. I think you need to be honest. I think you need to say, we got it wrong. When things do go wrong, it's saying, we got it wrong. We were trying, but a mistake has genuinely happened here. We're going to investigate it properly, and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. But we got it wrong. Being honest up front, that is one of the ways that you can counter lawfare. Your opponent's trying to undermine your legitimacy, then use transparency and honesty as your defense. If you're trying to do the right thing, then that's the message that you need to be getting out and backing it up by genuinely doing the right thing.
One of the great disservices that the mass media performs with respect to artificial intelligence is flooding the airways with misinformation about its dangers. I mean, we hear report after report after report of why we should be hyperventilating about the emergence of AI. AI is simply a technology. It's simply a tool, and it does not think. That is so important for us to make clear to the users of AI, which will include everybody in a very short order. It doesn't do any thinking. All it knows is sequences of zeros and ones, like any other computer program, and it knows the adjacent 0 or 1 to each word in the string. That's all. And it doesn't even know that. It simply produces that. And so there's no organic thought going on with AI. But neither is there organic thought per se when you open a big dictionary and look up a word in it. You have to do the thinking and extract the data from it. And AI is like that. When we go back to the advent of movable type and Johann Gutenberg developing the printing press, there were at that time social critiques to the effect that the advent of movable type will cause us to stop thinking, because it will keep us from using our memories and we will rely on things that are written down. Now, I suspect the irony of that we would find is that that information was probably conveyed in pamphlets written with movable type and published by the printing press. But the point is that with every technological innovation, we have the same problem coming up. Now, how we might introduce this into military life is first on the human level, but also on the technological level. With respect to technology, we cannot pretend that AI can do the thinking for us. humans need to be responsible for everything that, that AI is given to assist in, and it can assist. But the final decision has to be made by human beings. Now, the counter argument to that is, but human beings are fallible too. Isn't it better to have a machine figure these things out? Well, the answer is that the machine only has at its access the information that is programmed or that it can to receive or to glean from electronic sources, nothing more. And so it's really not something that, especially when it comes to moral tasks, that can be delegated completely to AI. It can be used just like we use computers now for targeting and so on, or for rapidly producing documents. But it cannot be given the task that human beings ultimately must be responsible for. Now, on the individual, the personal level, I think one of the things that we can do, and in the United States we're attempting to do this at our professional military education institutions, is to embrace AI in teaching and to assist our students in making a responsible use of it, a responsible use that will include an understanding not only of its benefits, but of its limitations. And I think that as military officers are trained to understand both what AI can do and what it can't do, then they will be more circumspect in the way that they expect to apply it in tactical or operational settings. And so I think that there's going to be a learning curve here over the next generation, particularly, especially for old people like me who are having to learn yet another new technology and not at the age of my grandchildren, for example, for whom it will be second nature. But as we learn how to use this and understand its instrumental aspect, that is, that it's a tool, then I think that many of the things that we worry about now with respect to AI will assume their proper level.
Professor?
Professor Padani, you spoke of civil-military cooperation. I understand it as being based on two things. Firstly, a flow of communication between both parties, and secondly, trust between both parties. That is, the civilian trusting and feeling secure in face of the military, and the military personnel being convinced that his raison d'être is to see to the security of the civilians. So what happens? How do you rebuild this cooperation when, in obedience to an order from the commander-in-chief, these very military personnel are bound to take action, repressive action against the civilians, as it happened very often in the world, even now?
Thank you. As I speak about these 3 points, as you repeated it, primarily the commander intent, the main point, that is the main task, because the civil-military cooperation is a tool in a commander hands, like engineer support, like logistics support, like Recce, etc., etc. On the top, the military activity and the military ideas always.
I would like to have the next question. I think we somehow we conceptualize this question that now everything becomes in some sense a tool. I would get back to your theory for a moment and this libido nominandi. I would like to have 2 questions for Professor Mattox. The first one is whether we should accept okay, we have this is natural, we cannot do anything with it, or rather we can capture some kind of elements that facilitate or mitigate libido dominandi. So I would be interested in that. That's my first question. as an individual level. The second question addresses the social level or the community level. Like, even if we can capture what the elements that mitigate libido dominandi for individuals, is it useful also in terms of international relations? So in terms of nations, can we really reduce the libido dominandi of nations? So in this sense, can we, in some sense, Christianize the international order?
Well, that, of course, is an excellent set of questions. Let's take the international order first. The international order is an anarchic sphere, and it is by design because there is no recognized, or I should say by lack of design, because there is no recognized overarching sovereign entity to which that the order can be subjected. Some will say, well, what about the United Nations, for example? Well, but that doesn't really serve a sovereign role. It can serve a coordinating role at best, but to say that it is sovereign, that is greater than which there is not, it would not be accurate in the reality of things in the international system. And so what are we left with? Well, we're left with a system whose anarchy is not unlike the sovereignty of individuals, if I may put it that way, inasmuch as each individual has free agency, then it is difficult just on the communal level to get everyone to want to do the right thing. Fortunately, we find that even in that anarchy, a lot of people want to do the right thing. I think more than perhaps we recognize. I'll give an example. When the electricity goes out at an intersection, at a four-way intersection in the city, what happens? Do all of the cars collide? No. People figure out how to work around the square and take turns going through the intersection without hitting other cars. Are there periodically people who will disobey? Yes, but they're the exception rather than the rule. And I'm not sure that it's the law that is keeping them in check there as much as it is this internalized understanding of, well, we've got to cooperate to work through the situation when the electricity is out. Well, I think that to the greatest extent possible, that as we model in the lives of people in a position to influence others for good through educational settings and certainly church settings, but in community settings as well, the idea that we have moral responsibilities to one another. And when we can show that demonstrably in our own lives, people take note, especially children, take note of this in ways that they will never acknowledge. I've discovered, from observing my own children and grandchildren, as I am preaching to them, they may not pretend like that they're listening at all. But it turns out that the way they conduct themselves when I'm not there shows that they were listening and that they did want to do the right thing. And so I think there's a continual need to model these things. And let me just say, with respect to military officers, this is especially important. I will give you an example from my own experiences. The military service can be a place where one hears a lot of coarse language. I made it a practice to never use coarse language, whether in the presence of my soldiers or not, and I never reprimanded them for doing it. But what happened was that when soldiers would use coarse language around me, one of their peers would say, "Oh, don't do that in front of the commander. Don't do that. That you're not speaking properly." And I never had to say a thing. they recognized it. And so there's a lot of things that as we model behavior, people do recognize and that they will embrace. And so all is not lost. There's reason to be hopeful on this account.
That's great. Anyone has another question? I have a lot, so don't worry about it. Okay, we have a question here. I think we have this question and probably a next one.
Thank you. My name is Mária Lakatos, and I'm a doctoral student at Pázmány Péter Catholic University. And I would like to address my question to Professor Újházi. Professor, you have mentioned a lot of thematical achievements of the bishop conferences. Can you tell any examples whether these achievements had gone through into the secularized legislation, and are there any fields which do not belong to the church, but are there any other fields of legislation when the bishop conferences are being involved in a social debate? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. First, I would like to reflect to the legislation. Yeah, several questions were implemented in the Code of Canon Law, which are connection with peace and social justice, and furthermore with the Bishop Conference. Let me tell you some examples. Priestly formation. A Bishop Conference has competence to elaborate the documents, the local priestly formation, the national priestly formation. According to the Second Vatican Council and other documents which are reflecting to the priestly formation, one of the key elements implementing the peace and social justice in the formation, the priestly formation, in the life of the seminary. So this is one example. When the Bishop Conference elaborates the document, of course, they have to take into consideration this perspective as well, the social justice, how we can teach the seminarians to the social justice and the peace, how they can cooperate with the civil authorities when they become bishops or leaders of other ecclesiastical authorities to promote the peace and social justice. This is one example. And then the particular council, the synods, we can say the synod, because we are talking a lot about the ecumenical councils. The last one occurred in the 1960s. This was the Second Vatican Council. But some countries had and dioceses had particular councils. A council of the conferences, because sometimes the conferences organize the synods. They were dealing with the question of social justice and peace. This is the other perspective when the Bishop Conference has competence according to the canon law, and this canon was integrated into the new Code of Canon Law. And apart from the certain issues, if we compare the two codes, the previous one which was published in 1916, this was the very first Code of Canon Law of the Catholic Church, and the last one which was promulgated after the Second Vatican Council, we can realize the huge difference regarding the Bishop Conferences, because the first code didn't mention not at all the Bishop Conference. However, at that time, the Bishop Conferences existed. But the legislator didn't want regulated in the universal canon law. And then, if we see the new Code of Canon Law, we realize the importance of the Bishop Conference in every area, every important question of the code. Let me tell you other example: ecumenism, the catechesis, the books which are used in the high schools and in the catechesis are under the control of the Bishop Conference, of course, and then after the Holy See. But before we send the document, the catechesis, the books to the Holy See, it is under the control of the Bishop Conference. The Bishop Conference can integrate the question of social justice and peace to these books. And furthermore, ecclesiastical universities, it is the responsibility of the Bishop Conference to elaborate the documents which will be sent to the Holy See. And of course, these documents can deal with the social justice. How can we improve the sensitivity the students like you who are learning or studying at the Catholic universities toward the social justice and peace? And apart from the certain legislation, some certain example, because the second question, or the second part of your question, referred to the certain issues. Soon after the Second World War, Conference of Bishops of Germany and the French bishops, they were very active at the reconciliation between the two nations. And other example from Poland and Germany, they were very active in the reconciliation. This is the practice, how they put into practice the legislation. And other example, Northern Ireland. In Northern Ireland, the Bishop Conference was very active in the reconciliation and improved the social justice. But other example from Hungary, the Slovakian and the Hungarian Bishop Conference, they signed a document about the reconciliation, and Benedict XVI sent a blessing to this event. This was very important to the Central European countries. And now, if I'm not mistaken, a new project is in progress. The reconciliation between the Romanian and the Hungarian nations and ethnicities, and the Bishop Conference, the two Bishop Conferences, they are very active in this process, in the reconciliation.
Okay, very last question to Professor Wetham. I think it was essential to emphasize the idea of moral injuries and PTSD, and I'm just curious about your thoughts on what is the role of the church or the churches in healing these wounds. Do they have a special role, or because now we face with a problem, with a crucial problem, and for me it's not really clear how we could solve that, or how Christian churches or whatever churches could contribute to solve this issue?
So I think, particularly in societies where the role of religion is still very prevalent and integrated in society, there's a huge role that the church can play there. And the starting point will be understanding what it is that you're dealing with. Moral injuries are a relatively new concept, but it's not a new thing. You can see from the Iliad examples of people who are suffering from PTSD and moral injury. It's not a new idea. You can look throughout human history and you'll see examples of both PTSD and moral injury. I would say that from a medical point of view, the medical community is increasingly good at managing people with PTSD, but moral injury is not a medical issue. And I would think that chaplains around the world are uniquely positioned to assist people with that area. So I think they have a huge role.
Thank you very much. Thank you for these fascinating lectures. Thank you for the questions and the discussions. Now we have time for lunch. That's going to be served just where the coffee was served previously. Bon appétit, jó étvágyat!